Okay, so one last thing about number 16 before we continue into the interactivity part. They tell you to look up the show and BD options um, on the internet. So let's go ahead and do that. I Googled Tkinter text entry widget. Typically, when you are trying to find information about a particular API like Tkinter, you want to type that in as the first thing in the search engine. And as we noted earlier, FBot, which is a popular website to go to for Tkinter stuff, is not currently functioning. So we're going to go to tutorials point here, which is another good one. Tutorials point has an entire page dedicated to the entry widget, and it starts off with a list of all the different optional parameters that you can use when you make an entry. So things like font, which we used, you can change the foreground color, which is the text. You can change the background color, which is the background of the entry. Those are fun things to do. What they want us to look up show, normally the characters, the user types appear in the entry box. But to make a password entry box, we can do a show property of asterisks. Okay, technically you could put anything for this. If you wanted like smiley faces to show up every time they type something, you could do that. But we will stick with asterisks. So let's go to our password entry box and let's do another optional parameter, and we will go show equals asterisks. And now when we hit play, instead of getting characters that we typed, we will get asterisks. So there's our username, and there's our password secret now. Very good, very good. Okay, fun stuff. Let's see. Now we need to add a button to our program so that our program can be interactive. Let's see. How are we going to make a button? Let's see if you can do a little research and figure out how to make a button. I'll pause the video here. Okay, here is my button variable. Hopefully you looked this up and found that to make a button. Oh, guess what? You use the button function and you make it a part of the frame and you tell it what the text is. I once again use the same font. If you missed that font setup thing earlier, I used the font setup that we basically had from the Turtle Leaderboard program. And I threw in a couple fun colors. I made the background of the button purple and the foreground white. All right, and then of course the pack is what actually puts it on the screen. If yours didn't show up, it's probably because you forgot the pack method. All right, interactivity. We would like this button to do something. And we're going to make it like log in by going to a different frame. Go ahead and play that video if you can to get the idea of the frame switching that we're going to do. We're going to make the frame that includes all our widgets disappear and a new frame pop up in its place so that it makes it look like we've logged in. To start with, we need to make a new frame called, is the frame login the one we're already using? Yeah, so the first thing they want us to do is add a couple of parameters to frame login. We need to include a row and a column. So back up here with frame login, we're going to go row equals 0 and column equals 0. The point of the grid layout is that you can specify what grid to put stuff in. So 0, 0 would be the top left portion of the grid, and it's going to be the only thing in the grid. So it's going to fill up the whole thing. And then we're going to go sticky equals news, which apparently means to fill up the whole thing. Okay. And then we need to we're going to make a new frame called frame authority, or authorized rather. And we're going to call the grid method on that and use the same parameters. So I'm going to hit pause and okay, so you can see here that I added a new frame And this time when you add the frame, you have to add it to the root, just like we did with our initial frame. And then it said to give it the same parameters. So row of 0, a column of 0, and do the sticky thing as well. When you put this in, it's going to look like all your other widgets are gone because this frame is now taking up the entire window, okay? Which it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong. We're going to fix it here in just a second, all right? So where does it talk about this? We need to call TK raise on our frame login. What this will do is it will raise our original frame with the login information to the front of the screen. So we're going to go frame login dot tk raise, and when we do that, it'll put frame login back at the front instead of the other login. There we go, we're back. Okay, let's make this button do something. To make a button do something, you set its command property. So we're going to go up to where we made our button. We're going to do an additional parameter. The order of these parameters doesn't matter because they're all optional and we're specifying which parameter we're talking about. So the order doesn't matter. We're going to do command equals, what do they want us to call it? Test my button. Test my button, which means we're going to write a function called test my button. And when we click the button, it's going to run that function. So let's go to the top real quick, all the way to the top, and we'll go define test my button. And usually when I test stuff, I like to print something first. But what they're going to have us do is they're going to have us show the other frame. So we're going to go frame authorized dot tk raise to make it show up instead. All right, so we're going to click login, and there we go, testing printed out, and the blank frame is there. Okay. All right, so to finish with, we're just going to put a couple labels on our other frame, okay? And on one of the in that label, we're going to show the password that was used to log in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and knock out these last few steps, and then I'm going to hit pause, and then you try them out, and then I'll show you the solution. Okay, so you can see that I created a new label, and pay attention to where this label goes. It goes on the new frame that we created, the authorized frame, right? I called pack on it to make sure it shows up on the new frame. And then up here, in addition to raising the authorized frame when you log in, you also configure the text of the label. There are two ways to set the properties of a widget. One of those ways is to set properties when you make the widget, like we have been doing over and over and over again in this lesson. The other way is to call the configure function. You can call configure on any kind of widget. So in this case, we're calling it on a label. And then we're going to specify what property we're configuring. And that property is the text. We're setting the text of the label. What are we setting the text to? You could hard code in something here like we've done on all the other examples. But in this case, we're getting the text from our password entry box. So when I log in, if I did like Gentry C and then did a password of that, what was my password? It was 123456. So the password text shows up on the label that's on this new frame. Okay, for your assignment today, we're going to see if you can make another really basic window with multiple frames in it. So you're going to use the grid method to put frames in various parts of the grid here. Remember, top left is 0, 0, a row of 0, column of 0. This would be row 0, column 1, and then row 1, column 0, and then row 1, column 1. Each of these are frames, and they have changed the background, and they have set the width and height property of the frame. Okay, so do some Googling on how to set the width and height property of frames, how to use the grid thing, which you've already seen in here. Um, so when you make each frame, you're going to be using this each time, setting the row and the column for that uh, frame object. You're going to be making 4 frames. Don't do sticky equals news though, because that makes it fill up the whole thing, and you don't want that.